sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Hi. So this is Sherry Schiller-Faust, and today we're going to be doing online with the CMC. Our subject today is Braille, Decoding the Dots. It's going to be presented by Dr. Pamela Thomas. She is our bibliographic project manager or coordinator. And I just want to say that everyone at the current time is muted. At the end of the session, we will unmute people so you can either ask questions via your microphone, or you can always put questions in the chat. And you can put questions in the chat throughout the presentation. We may not answer them until after the presentation. So without further ado, here's Dr. Pamela Thomas.
Good morning. Sorry, I was trying to clear my throat quietly, but that just wasn't going to happen. Welcome. So today we're going to talk about Braille decoding the dots. And this presentation, just the slides, is available on L2. I know L2 is not maybe working right now, but I will also put the presentation with the notes on L2 when it's back up and alive with us. So sorry. Okay. So the agenda today, I'm going to start talking about the MARC fixed field elements, then specific MARC fields for Braille books, and then I'll give you some examples of MARC records. Just to give you a little background about my experience with Braille books, which started fairly recently. Mattoon Public Library received between 400 and 450 Braille books, and they asked the CMC to catalog them. I have cataloged approximately 160 of those, and what I'm going to share with you today are just the lessons that I've learned when cataloging Braille books. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm an expert, because I'm not, but I just want to share what I've learned along my way. And this is not the only way to catalog Braille books, but these are the fields that I have found should be included in a Braille bibliographic record. When you see some of the screenshots of the MARC records, the subfield A does not display in the OCLC records as the first subfield, since it's an implicit field. So if you don't see the subfield A, it really is there, I promise. And I've also found very few resources for cataloging Braille bibliographic records, and I've also found there's not a lot of consistency in the records in OCLC or WorldCat. So this is just the best that I've come up with. Okay, so here's an example of a fixed field element for a Braille book. Notice that the selected format is books, and the most important code can be found in form, which is coded as F, which means it's Braille and that the item is in Braille. And this is an example of the MARC fields, the 00X. So for the 007 field, which is the physical description fixed field for text, subfield A is coded as T for text, and subfield B is coded as C for Braille. I'm assuming that you will be cataloging your Braille books using RDA guidelines, so you will need to add subfield E RDA after subfield B in the 040 field, which is cataloging source. This book did have an 043, which is the geographic area code, but you only need, sorry, to create an 043 if your book has a geographic heading or subheading. In this case, there's a Virginia subject heading, so the code is N-US-VA. N is for North America, US is for the United States, and VA is for Virginia. And the 043 field contains the geographic area code, or GAC, which is an aid to a subject approach to the item, and it provides a hierarchical breakdown of geographical and/or political entities. You may base your code selection on geographic names and/or subdivisions in 6XX subject added entry and index term fields. Enter the codes in order of importance, usually the same order as the geographic names and/or subdivisions in the 6XX fields. And each geographic area code has 7 character positions, which use lowercase letters or hyphens, and all 7 positions must be filled or the field will not validate. Sorry. So complete any unfilled character positions with hyphens, so the entry is 7 characters long, and you can look at the MARC code list for geographic areas to find those codes. And if the item deals with an area that's too specific to be represented by a code, then assign the code for the next larger jurisdiction or area. And that all comes from the OCLC's bibliographic formats and standards. And then the final 00X field is the 046, and that's for special coded dates. And you're going to code it used as a reference to the original print publication of the book. In this case, the original book was published in 1977. So the date goes in subfield K, which is for beginning or single date created. And then subfield 2 has EDTF, which is the thesaurus used for the date, which is extended date time format. And I think I forgot to mention that I'll take questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so the GMD is the General Material Designator. It's no longer used in RDA guidelines. However, I know a lot of libraries are continuing to use the GMD in their local records, and that's fine. Just make sure that you don't add subfield H with the GMD to a WorldCat record. So the screenshot is displaying how to format the GMD. So the title is Bridge to Terabithia, and then you have subfield H and then Braille in brackets. Okay, so for the 250 field, I add Braille Edition. And this is your edition statement field. Since the Braille Edition is not found on the item itself, I enclosed it in brackets. And the 250 field ends in a period, so the closing bracket is not a sufficient end of field punctuation mark as it is in other fields. This might not be your best practice to do this, but I just feel like it helps really identify the record as a Braille book. Okay, let's talk about the 264 fields. So the 264 field is production, publication, distribution, manufacturing, copyright notice, and it can vary depending on what information is on the item. So 3 different examples of Braille books are shown here. The first example shows a place of publication, the publisher, and a publication date of 2017. In the second example, there was very little information on the item. The publication date between 1996 and 2020 is an estimated range of dates. The 1996 date is the original print version publication date. And I know that the library received these donated books in 2020 or before 2020, so I use between 1996 and 2020 as the questionable dates. And then the third example shows a place, publisher, and a printing date of 2013, the first Braille printing, which is an implied publication date and is therefore bracketed for the first 264 field. In the second 264 field, the copyright date of 2012 is recorded. A note on questionable dates, the use of a question mark would be expected if the date or dates we're not certain whether recorded as between 2 dates or just a single date. In most cases where the between 2 dates phrasing is used, it seems the range is fairly certain and no question mark would normally be needed. But if the range was not certain, the addition of the question mark would be okay. That was from Shanna Griffith from OCLC because I asked her a question if I needed to be adding a question mark at the end of that second example. So you could have between 1996 and 2020 question mark. And that's, I guess, going to be up to your cataloger's judgment. I chose not to use the question mark. Okay, let's talk about the 3XX fields. So the 300 field is for physical description, and of course this will vary depending on what book or books you have. In this case, this was a 3-volume set, and the dimensions were 28 by 31 centimeters. Very rarely will a Braille book have illustrations for obvious reasons. Notice in the 336 field, which is content type, that subfield A has tactile text and subfield B is TCT, but the 337 media type and the 338 carrier type are the same as what you would use for a regular print book. The 341 field, accessibility content, notes that it is textual in subfield A, which is content access mode, and that the tactile assistive feature, subfield E, is Braille. The first indicator 0 equals adaptive features to access primary content. If any books have jumbo braille, you should also include a 340 for physical medium, subfield N, font size, and jumbo braille. And then in subfield 2, which is source, RDAFS, which is RDA font size. And jumbo braille is a term in the RDA registry list for font size, if you'd like to look that up. Okay. These are the 5XX fields. This is just one example of the 5XX fields, which are notes used for a Braille book. As you can see, there are 500 general note fields. These, of course, will vary for each item. Many of the Braille books that I have cataloged are for children, so including a 520, which is a summary, etc. note, is a best practice. I personally like reading the summary in all books, so if you have the time, it's nice to add this note. I add the 534 field, which is original version note, which is especially helpful if the print bibliographic record was used to create the Braille bibliographic record. It also gives the place of publication, publisher, and the original publication date, which ties into the date in the 046 field, the special coded dates. This book was a Newbery Medal winner in 1978, so that is documented in the 586 field, which is for awards note. And this field does not end in a period. And then the 588, first indicator 0, second indicator blank, which is a source of description note. The first indicator 0 equals source of description, and the only option for the second indicator is blank. And this provides the information that the description for the Braille transcription was based on the print edition. Okay. The 655, or the genre form term. Of course, you're also going to add applicable 65X subject headings, but I always create a 655, first indicator blank, second indicator 7, and this is index term genre form, and then subfield A, Braille books, period, space, subfield 2, LCGFT. The subfield 2 is for the source of term, which is a Library of Congress genre form terms for library and archival materials. And remember, this is a subject heading for the form of the work, and the form is a Braille book. All right, now we have the beautiful 776 fields, which are a lot of fun. So the 776 field is for additional physical form entry, and it can be used to document the print version of the book. This screenshot has been edited to fit on the slide because there were multiple ISBNs, so I just made it smaller. So I will show you the full bibliographic record later. The first indicator 0 equals display note, and the second indicator 8 equals no display constant generated. Subfield I is used for the relationship information, which in this case is print version. Subfield A is used for the main entry heading, in this case the author's name. Subfield T is used for the title. Subfield D is for the place, publisher, and date of publication. Subfield Z is the International Standard Book Number, or ISBN, and subfield W is the OCLC record control number. There are other subfields and indicators that can be used in the 776 field, but these are the ones that I have used for Braille books. For more information, you can go to OCLC's Bibliographic Formats and Standards and look up the 776 field. In the 776 field, if the author only has a birth year, then the hyphen serves as the mark of punctuation. So look at that second example where you see Goodman, comma, Susan E, period, comma, space 1952 hyphen, which is in subfield A. So there's no period after the hyphen. And then the 776 field can also be inserted automatically in OCLC Connection using the Insert from Cited Record function under the Edit tab. All right, here are some other additional MARC fields that I have added to records. So the first two examples are for the same item. In the 300 field, physical description, I recorded 1 volume of text in Braille. In the 546, which is the language note, subfield B, I added text in English and Braille as a note. In the third example, the transcriber's name was included on the title page, so I created a 700 first indicator 1, second indicator blank for the added entry personal name. The first indicator of 1 equals a surname, and so you see the transcriber there is Joyce or Bennett Witz. And then for the fourth example, I created a 710 first indicator 2, second indicator blank, which is added entry for corporate body. And the first indicator 2 equals the name and direct order for the Braille Institute of America, which was a sponsoring body of the book. And you might also need to create a 500, which is a general note, subfield A, alternate lines of print and Braille on each leaf when applicable. Quite a few of the books that I've been cataloging have been sponsored by the Braille Institute of America. So there are other corporate bodies that can be included as well, though. Okay. So sometimes you have questionable dates in the fixed field elements. So you're going to code the DTST, the type of date, publication status as Q for questionable date. In the dates field, you're going to put the oldest date as date 1, and the more current date is date 2. In this example, date 1 is 1967, and 2020 is date 2. The original print book was published in 1967, and I knew that the Mattoon Public Library had received the book before 2020, so that is how I selected the 2 dates. Okay, so the 264 field for questionable dates could look like this. This is just one example. So again, the book was published between 1967 and 2020, and the print book was published in 1967, and the library received the donated book before 2020. The information is bracketed since it was not found on the item. Okay, so this is the main bibliographic record that I've been showing you throughout the presentation. It's Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson. And here are the fixed field elements along with fields 007 through 250. I enhanced this OCLC record by adding field 007, physical description field, text, 046, special coded dates, and the 250 edition statement. Here are some more MARC fields of the Bridge to Terabithia. So these are MARC fields 264 through the 500 field. Notice the 300 field, the physical description, records that there are 3 volumes of Braille. In the first 500 field, general note, records that the cover is in print and Braille. And the fourth 500 field informs you that the Braille is on embossed pages. Here are the final MARC fields of the Bridge to Terabithia, the 520 through the 776. The 534 field, original version note, records that the original book was published in New York by T.Y. Crowell in 1977. And the 776 field, additional physical form entry, provides more information about the original print book, author, which is in subfield A, and that's where you put the main entry, title, subfield T, ISBN number, subfield Z, and then the OCLC record control number in subfield W. Here's another example. This is the giver, and here are the fixed field elements and fields 007 through 100. The 040 field, cataloging source, is not shown in its entirety for presentation purposes. If you would like to look at this record on your own, it's OCLC number 399-64286. And this is another record that I enhanced by adding field 007, physical description field text. The Braille edition was published the same year as the original print version, so there's no reason to add an 046 field, the special coded dates. Here are some more MARC fields for the giver. So these are MARC fields 245 through 500. And notice that there are 2 volumes of Braille in the 300 field, physical description. And I added fields 250, the edition statement, the 341, accessibility content, and the 500 notes, general notes. I also added transcribed by seed leads in the 245 field, subfield C, title statement, statement of responsibility, etc. Here are the final MARC fields for the giver. So there are fields 520 through 776, and I added the 534 original version note and the 776 fields, additional physical form entry. Okay, the missing tooth MARC record. Here are the fixed field elements along with the MARC fields 007 through 264, the missing tooth by Joanna Cole. I enhanced this OCLC record by adding the 007, physical description field text, the 046, special coded dates, and the 250 edition statement fields. Okay, here are some more mark fields for the missing tooth. So we've got mark fields 264. This is the second 264 field through the 500. And notice that the first note describes the alternate lines of print and Braille in each line. And I also added the 341 accessibility content and all the 5XX fields, which are the note fields. Okay, these are the final mark fields for the missing tooth. So you have fields 520 through 776. In the 546 field, the language note subfield B tells us that this book is in uncontracted Braille. I cannot tell the difference between different forms of Braille, so I only add notes from information that is included on the item. I added the 534 original version note, 588 source of description note, and the 776 additional physical form entry fields. So here's another example. This is Mrs. Jeepers is missing. These are the fixed field elements along with fields 007 through 336. And this book is by Debbie Dady. I originally cataloged this book in the 264 field, production, publication, distribution, manufacturing, copyright notice. I put United States in brackets with a question mark in subfield A, publisher not identified in brackets in subfield B, and between 1996 and 2020 in brackets in subfield C, since I did not have specific publication information. The original print book was published in 1996, and I know that Mattoon Public Library received this donation before 2020, so those are the dates that I used. I also used Q for questionable date and the fixed field elements for DTST, type of date, publication status. I added the 1996 date and the 046 fields, special coded dates as well. The 300 field physical description ends in a period after CM, since there is a 490 series statement, which is on the next slide. Just a note, if some of you are wondering why I chose 2020 when I know that they received the donations before 2020, is because sometimes publishers will use a future year as a publication date. So just to be on the safe side, I chose 2020 instead of 2019. Okay, so here's some more mark fields for Mrs. Jeepers is missing. So we've got fields 337 through 588. There's a 490 series statement field for the Bailey School Kids Super Special. There's an accompanying 800 field, which is series added entry personal name on the next slide. But for this item, notice that the first 500 field, which is a general note, records that the book cover is in print and Braille. Okay, here are the final mark fields for Mrs. Jeepers is missing. So we have fields 650 through 800, and there's the series statement in the 800 field, which is a series added entry personal name, and the series title appears in subfield 2. Okay, so just to share with you some of the covers and title pages that are on some of the Braille books that I've cataloged. I laugh because some of them don't have a lot of information, so it just makes them more challenging. So most of the time, the cover of the Braille book is where I find most of my information. I don't read Braille, so any information in text is appreciated. Here are some of the typical covers that I've cataloged. So on the left is the front cover, which is only in Braille. And the spine title of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul by Jeff Kinney. And notice that somebody has handwritten that information on the spine title, but thank goodness I did. And the spine title, which is handwritten, gives me the information that I need. I would like more information, but it gives me a good starting place. In the middle is the front cover of Cam Jansen and the Chocolate Fudge Mystery by David A. Adler. This is the best case scenario. There's a title, author, place of publication, publisher, publication date, and transcriber information. On the right is the front cover of The Mirror Mirror, a book of reversal poems by Marilyn Singer, as well as a title page. So someone actually cut and pasted a color copy of the original book on the cover. On the title page of the book, someone wrote the title and subtitle at the top of the page. And so with information from both of those sources, I could begin cataloging the book. So if you've ever seen any other presentations by me with this, I'm sorry, but this is like the coolest Braille book that I've cataloged so far. The Declaration of Independence by Jean Scott Neal. So there's actually a tactile Liberty Bell, which you can see on the right. And notice that there's both English text and Braille. So the English text is on the left hand side of the page, and then the Braille is on the right hand side, and that's how it is throughout the book. So that one was also pretty cool for that feature as well. So here's another example of a Braille book. So someone actually transcribed this, and it's typed up and stapled together, which if you ever run across this, it's very helpful, especially for someone like me who can't read Braille. I do not find these gems very often. On the right is the front cover of the book, Washington Irving's The Headless Horseman, adapted by Natalie Standiford. The information on the front cover would have been enough for me to catalog the book, but the typed transcript allowed me to create a fuller bibliographic record. Okay, and here's the Headless Horseman MARC record. So the MARC fixed field elements along with fields 007 through 300 are shown above for the Headless Horseman by Natalie Standiford. I originally cataloged this book. The original print book by Natalie Standiford was published in 1992, so I included that in the 046 field, special coded dates. I also included who transcribed the print book into Braille in the 245 subfield C, title statement, statement of responsibility, etc. Here are some more MARC fields of the Headless Horseman. So we've got 336 through 500 MARC fields. And this is an adaptation of the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and you will see the 800 field soon. So here's some more MARC fields. Notice that I added quoted information from the front and back covers in the 500 fields. So those first two fields there. Okay, and these are the final MARC fields. These are the 700 through 830 MARC fields. I created the first 700 field, added entry, personal name for the transcriber. The heading is not controlled since an authority record does not exist for Dorothy M. Wall. I created the second 700 field for the original work, Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. And here's just an example of what the interleaved text in Braille looks like. So on the left is the first page of text in Braille from Henry and Mudge, the first book by Cynthia Rylant. On the right is the first page of text in Braille from The Missing Tooth by Joanna Cole. As you can see, the text is on the first line and then the Braille is on the following line. So for both WorldCat records, I added a 500 general note, 500 both indicators blank, subfield A, alternate lines of print and Braille on each leaf. And here's a list of resources. Yes, it's short because, again, I couldn't really find a lot of helpful resources for cataloging Braille. And as you can see from the presentation, enhancing the record, an existing record, can almost take as much time as it does to originally catalog one. So as always, I've consulted OCLC's bibliographic formats and standards for guidance and to look at their wonderful examples. As you heard earlier, I actually also emailed them with a question. I've created a Word document with fields that I add to each bibliographic record, as well as alternate fields that might need to be added. And I can share this if anyone's interested. So please either email me or post something in the chat box saying that you'd like it. It's not perfect, but it's my little guide, my little template that I use. There's really very little documentation available for cataloging Braille books. So if anyone has a great resource they're willing to share, that would be wonderful. Because I still have, over 300 more books to catalog if they gave me a correct count. Okay. Now, so sorry, it's time for questions.
Pam, we have a question from Anne Marie Lindsay. It says, we ordered print on demand Braille books, spiral bound, numerous volumes. Therefore, the only information in print is the title, no ISBN, no publishing information, no date, no series, etc. What should I use for the publishing information and date?
Hang on, let me go back. Find. Okay, let me just. Okay, give me 2 seconds so I can find where I can let people unmute themselves too. So hang on, people. Oh. hang on, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Okay, people can unmute themselves. All right, I'm going to share again. Sorry. Let me find. Do I have to go all the way at the top? Yes, clearly I do. Was it here? So I think this is what you're talking about. So it would be like this second example. Let me pull up the chat too so I can read your question. Hopefully. Or not, because the chat box doesn't want to show for me. Yay. Is this what you're talking about? So, so I've got United States ? In brackets, and then in subfield B, publisher not identified in brackets, and then between dates. I don't know. Did you ask anything about dates?
Well, I believe, yeah, she said there's no dates, no series, etc. So I think that second example is how she would proceed with that.
Right.
And in the dates, you could put also at the end a question mark at the end. Yep. Like if you did 2020, you could put a question mark at the end. That's sort of up to you. But because you're really just kind of guessing on everything.
Yes. Oh, now it shows up. Oh, technology is awesome today.
So we have another from Rhonda Bierman. We would love that sent to us at RSA. So I think she's talking about your Word document.
Yeah, she is.
And then from Edie Elliott, in a 776 field, if there are dates associated with an author's name, do we need to record the date in the subfield D?
No, because subfield D is used for something else. So it has to go in that subfield A with the author's name. Hang on. So see, subfield D is used for publication information. So you have to put the author's dates in subfield A. I know it seems wrong because I had to keep like second guessing myself too.
Well, I would like to add that if you are putting in a 776 into your record, you can copy the OCLC number from the record that you're citing,
right,
and type in a new line 776, first indicator 0, second indicator 8, and then if you go up to the edit on the what is that called?
The edit tab, yeah, and then you just
the taskbar at the top, edit, and then there's like in the second or third grouping it says cite from record. If you just click on that, it actually puts the 776 in for you, and you don't have to change anything. I mean, it puts it in exactly how it should be.
Yeah, I mentioned that when I did this slide. So yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, you just use that the edit tab and use the insert from cited record function. So it's all good.
So we have another question from Linda Johnson. Is a transcribed date used as a publication date?
I think I did.
Well,
I'm not saying it was right.
Yeah. I think if that's the only date you have, I would use it as an implied publication date. So I would keep it in brackets.
Yes.
That would be my opinion on that.
Yeah, and that's what I did. But some of these Braille books can be very confusing because like on the back cover, there might be like the copyright date, which is really for the original print version. So then that, you know, you really have to kind of figure out, and you have to do some research. I mean, these definitely take more time to catalog, you know, than just a regular book, but yeah. So don't think you're going to get one done in 5 minutes. Well, if you do, then please let me know, and maybe we can tag team and I can hire you, because I can't do them in 5 minutes. Much slower than that.
Okay, we have a question from Anne Marie Lindsay. Is it okay to use the place that printed the materials as the publisher?
Do you mean the printed the book itself? Then yeah. Is that what you meant?
Print on, is it the same, print on demand? I'm thinking, if I'm thinking of her question correctly, I think you could use, if that's all
The
you
only
have,
information you have, yeah, then you're going to have to.
you could put it in brackets with question marks, or you could also put it, since it is a printed, it's saying printed, you could do like a 264 one with like United States question mark, publisher not identified, and then also a 264 second indicator 2 for the printing. If is it 2 or 3? I can't remember, but no, I think it's 3. I think it would be 264 second indicator 3. Yeah, because 2 is distribution. I think you could do it that way.
Okay.
Let's see. The next question is from Robert Brady. Is the 534 original version note required? Not sure I would be able to accurately determine the original version.
No, it's not required. It's just something that I have found is useful. And also that information is plugged into the 776 field. And I think it's kind of good to have both of those in the record. It takes a little digging to find the original version, either through WorldCat or Connection, but you usually can find it.
So that's all the questions we have right now. If anyone has any other questions not related to Braille books, but you just have a question about something, please feel free to type that in the message, or I do believe you're unmuted if you would prefer to.
Yes, you can unmute yourself. Yep.
Yes, you can unmute yourself so you can speak. So does anyone else have any just basic cataloging questions they'd like to ask?
And we're also looking for topics for next year. I know it seems early. Well, our next fiscal year, which starts July 1st, but our first online with the CMC probably won't be till August. But we need to get those topics decided on probably by next month. I know that sounds crazy, but we have some ideas, but we really like ideas from all of you that attend our sessions, because I feel like you know what you'd like us to do some training on. So you can either put that in the chat box, or you can email us. I'm typing it in the, hopefully, chat box. Somebody double check that for me though, because I'm on my laptop and it's really small and I can't see.
That's correct.
Oh, and it's at the bottom of the slide, so duh.
Yeah.
So, although you can get the link from the chat box and not from the slide. So, and like I said, I'm not an expert in Braille. I'd never cataloged any Braille books until I started this project. So these are just lessons I've learned. And like I said, if any of you have any wonderful resources that you want to share, please feel free to do so. And then I challenge you all to go Google Braille cataloging or Braille cataloging resources. And if you find some good stuff, then shame on me, but I couldn't find any. Or not very much. Okay, nobody has any questions about Braille or any other just general cataloging?
Pam, this is Edie Elliott. I do have a question.
Yep, go. Go, Edie, go.
Oh, you mentioned adding a note for a Braille embossed page.
Mm-hmm.
Is that different than just a regular Braille page? I mean, how would you know something was an embossed page?
No, I only know that because it was on, the book, it's like it said it was embossed.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't add anything because I don't know. I can't tell the difference.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I wondered.
I know they're different. I mean, there's more than just embossed. There's probably at least 5 or 6. Well, and there's contracted Braille and uncontracted Braille, and I don't know the difference of that. I mean, I should probably look that up, but I don't read Braille, so I only add things that are actually on the item itself because I'm
Okay.
not going to guess. I'll guess about dates because I have to, but I will not guess about anything else that needs to go on that record. I will not.
All right, great. Thank you.
And assignments for everybody attending. You go look in WorldCat at some Braille records and you tell me how consistent you think they are, because I don't think they are.
Pam, I have a question. Can you go back on your slides? I thought it was on the Sleepy Hollow book. I thought it had written in there contracted at the top, and I don't recall that being in the record. Where would that go in the record?
It would be in a 500.
And you would just say contracted Braille?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is my mouse acting all crazy? So this is the...
Yeah, it was on the page. On the cover.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my 500 notes. No, I don't see it on there. So let's...
Yeah, so that is something that would be...
Oh, you cut out.
Oh, sorry, I hit my mute button. So that is something that would be good to put in the record because people know what that means. I mean, we obviously don't know what that means. But
I don't.
People that are looking for Braille books know what that means.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll add that note. Sorry. Okay. Any other questions? So of course, my chat box disappeared. Oops.
Rhonda wrote, I have had to in the past, and I agree, there isn't any consistency.
I know, and what I don't understand. I mean, I know there isn't a lot of consistency with everything, but shoot. Because I looked at quite a few records before I started cataloging any of them, and it was like, seriously, like, do I need to add this field? And, you know, I was just going back to bib formats and standards constantly and reading all the information on those fields to figure out what really needed to be in there. So yeah. Okay, no other questions? All right, like I said, we're looking for future topics, so email us. Sherry, do you want to stop the recording?